What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 19th Century Geek. I'm your wondrous and exalted guest, host, Scott Weatherly. And as always, I'm joined by a guest, but I could be joined by no one better for this discussion than Tony Farina, my literary icon hero. Tony, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm excellent. I love 19th Century Geek. I'm here for that. I'm very excited. This should be a big fun. This book, I've taught this book in literature courses. I've taught it in liberal arts studies courses, feminist theory courses, like you name it. I mean, her mom, Mary Shelley's mom, is one of my literary crushes. She Mary Wollstonecraft. She wrote The Vindication of the Rights of Women. That's all over this book, and that's all over this story. Well, it's all over some iterations of this story.
Yes. And I think that's what we'll get to. I think, we will start. Let's start at we are talking about Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And you're right. I think we have to start with the book, and then we'll go through and lead up to the 2025 iteration. And as you say, there's no one better than talk about it yourself. But to give it just to give it some context for those that may or may not have read the book, I refreshed myself over the last couple of days. I know you did the same. It's been a couple of years. I had to read at school. And basically the story is of a young and ambitious Victor Frankenstein who grows up an idyllic youth, but loses his mother, but then as he gets older, more and more ambitious, takes on this sort of this quest to build life and build it on a grand scale and all those other things. And he's successful after I think it's 2 or 3 years of working it to obsessively creates life in his creature, but at the moment of life is repulsed by it and dashes from the room. And at the same time as the creature comes to life, it removes itself from the laboratory and goes off into the world. And then we diverge. And Victor Frankenstein lives this life of unknowing, and sort of these things happen. And then when he is confronted by the creature, we have this story of how the creature survived for, I think, sort of like several years, at least 3 years. I thought it was 3 years, yeah. And why the creature is now seeking revenge on its creator. And then it takes revenge, and it culminates in the story being recounted to some poor sod on an Arctic expedition. I've
hot takes about that guy as well. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy is an interesting. This whole thing is written in letters. A lot of it, especially at the beginning, is written in the form of the exchange of letters, which is obviously similar to Dracula, which came sort of 80 years later.
And the word vampire appears in this story.
It does, in a different kind of context, but
correct.
Very much so. I have it. The thing is, this book was written in 1818. It's very it's of its era. It's the purplest of prose. Why use one word when 28 will do?
I'm all for that. I love a plotting British novel, my friend. I love a plotting British novel, and it plods along. And I actually reread the original. So the version. So she wrote this. She and her husband, Shelly, and Lord Byron. Well, they're all at Lord Byron's, and actually the other guy whose name is eluding me, who actually wrote the first vampire story, wrote that during the same sort of long weekend. Yep. So this is just like a bunch of people whacked out on all the drugs, and they tell these ghost stories. Well, I mean, Byron was on all the drugs, whether Shelley and Mary and the other guy. I mean, probably, but nobody was on more drugs than Byron. And so so she writes the story. So sort of the original version of the story was a little bit longer. So she didn't get it. It wasn't like she wrote the whole thing, but the idea of it was there. This was the germ of it. And so the first version, the first sort of printed anonymously edition, was a little bit heftier and not a ton, but there was just a little bit extra more in those letters, just a little bit here and there. And then of course, there's all kinds of different versions, and there's been abridged versions and Classics Illustrated versions and all those things. So it had been a while since I revisited that original 1818, not the 1820 edition. So I read the 1818 edition, and really the things are minimal, but as you said, purple prose, it's as I'm doing right now, it's a little bit longer. There were a few places where you're like, let's tighten this up. Maybe Victor doesn't have this much to say about natural philosophy.
There's two things in it. There's like bits in it that like genuinely make me laugh. There's a scene later in the book, and Victor has sort of escaped this island in the Aucklands where he was supposed to be building the Bride of Frankenstein, and he sort of wrecks on the Irish coast, and he's taken ill. She does quite a lot in this book. But when he comes to, there's a woman there. This has been nursemaiding him, and all she says is, "I hope you're well. I hope you are feeling better." Basically, to which the answer is, "Yes, I am." But he doesn't. It's kind of like, I feel languid, and my eyes are grey whilst I look at the sky of purple clouds, and I'm disquieted by this. And she just sort of goes, "Shut up," basically, like she said, like not into which, but she is kind of like, "All right, whatever you're gonna say." And I'm with her, and I'm going like, "Yeah, no, I'm with you." Like this was,
I don't care. This is, it's like people like him. So like in America, we are, and maybe it's just a modern day thing, but it was first pointed out to me while I was in my undergrad by a French woman who was like, "You Americans are so rude to each other." And I was like, "You're a French woman. Let's have this conversation." And she said, "You guys," like, she's like, the reason people think the French are rude," and I'm sorry, Julian, with my bad French accent, and he can chastise me later, "is that they just say what they're feeling." So it's like they don't bullshit. They're just like, "Hello," and they move along. Whereas like Americans are like, "How are you?" But we really don't give a fuck how you are. We say, "How are you?" or "What's up?" We have these starts of conversations to seem nice, but then we just keep walking past each other. Yeah. But I firmly believe part of it is because of this, because the answer was, "How are you?" The answer is, "Oh my God, I'm well. Thank you for saving me." Or "I'm fine. Thank you." Yes. But it turned into so people were like, "I'm just going to start answering with good."
Yeah. Oh, we do this. That's the British thing as well.
Okay. All right.
You're all right. I'm all right. Does it like the house could have burnt down? I've lost my family and I'm destitute, but I don't want to have that conversation. So I'm all right.
I'm all right. It's all right. It feels like too, the further north you go in England, the more that's the answer. And like when you get to Scotland, it's just like,
yeah.
That's what I've understood. Having not been there, but based on the people that I know from there and the conversations I've had, is like, that's all you can get.
It's a nod. Yeah.
We're good. Yeah. Anyway, but it is true. The prose but she was 19 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fuck, kudos to her.
It's one of those, I think, having gone through it, I like the idea. Yeah. I think the idea that, Mary Shelley is the grandmother of modern science fiction, yes, definitely acknowledge that. I'm a big fan of Lovecraft, so I'm not averse to some purple prose. So, there are scenes where I like
and some hand wavy science.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I love the fact that in this, that at no point does Victor sort of go, "Well, here's how I do it." It's just sort of like the spark of life. And when he's challenged on it, he just goes, "I shall not, give away this secret ever again." You're like, "Oh, I'm cool with that. That sounds good."
Yeah. Sounds like flux capacitor to me.
Absolutely. I'm completely fine with that. It makes no problem. What I do find kind of galling is repeatedly in the book, once Victor's been confronted by the creature and he has this sort of new quest to create another creature, and he's determined to travel to England and this other stuff. There's this thing of like the creature was watching over me. I could feel its eyes on my soul, and the depression and anxiety would drive me to madness. I spent the next 3 days sitting on the lake and contemplating what I should do. And you go, "What? Where's that anxiety?" Or like the creature was crawling from the blackness of my own heart and making me despair. I spent the next 3 days in Givet, somewhere in Paris. Didn't you go? No. Where's the 1 minute? It's like the worst thing ever. Then it's sort of like a travelogue of I was in Strasbourg for 3 days waiting for my friend Clavel. And you're just like, no, what?
This is beautiful. This is a great setup. So I didn't know where to drop this in. So this is truly my literary theory. So you've walked me there. So I'm going to start early, come in hot. Please keep listening, people. Where this isn't going to be the whole show, but hear me out. Everything that you just said, totally accurate. So it is my contention that Robert Walton, Victor Frankenstein, and the creature are the same person. And this is a DID situation.
Right.
And I know you're here for that. I know you love Moon Knight. I know we have a mutual friend who is, so I hope that they hear this and understand. I'm not coming at it from that, like it's the villain has DID, because we know that that's garbage.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that, in 1818, that, she was 19 years old. What did we know? But I truly can read it like if you play a psychological lens on this book. Like you even said, these are letters, and it isn't an exchange of letters. These are letters at Margaret Walton from Seville. She's married. So this is Robert, a ship's guy who's got like completely obsessed with doing this Arctic trip for reasons. I got to prove myself, and I'm an Englishman, and I go to St. Petersburg, and I get these Russians. I don't even speak Russian, but I'm gonna commandeer this boat, and we're gonna go through the Arctic for reasons. So his hubris is a mile wide, okay? And so he's writing these letters to her, and it's like at first it's all super chippy and whatever, and then shit gets dark, and it's like for reasons in July we get stuck in an ice floe. Well, okay, and so then this shows up, and this guy shows up, and so it is my contention that what you just described is the moments when Victor feels that anxiety or whatever, and then later is when the creature is inhabiting the body doing the things. And so Victor is feeling that. Now, whether it's Victor or whether Robert Walton is the true body, and these people are, if it's all in his head and none of these things are happening, right? So are they alters and they're actually doing these things, or is this all a fantastical story told inside Robert Walton's head because he's alone on an ice floe?
Yeah.
Like
possibly.
So that
is
truly. So this is because like the Robert Walton story makes no sense.
No.
Because at the end of the day, the only person who really lives that we know for sure is we don't even know that Robert makes it back to England. We just know the letters make it back to his sister. So at the end of the day, none of it could be real.
What you're actually saying is this book suffers from the same paradox issue of found footage films.
Sure.
When you're kind of like, this is supposed to be, a mockumentary sort of, fake documentary. You're going, cool. Who edited this and put this together and did this and sort of is, you sort of go, this feels weird, and you go like, oh, it doesn't matter. Same sort of issue. Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, so that is my answer to that. Now, I love this book. I love it. I give it 5 stars every time I read it. I think it's great. And I can read it a different way, but like the literary critic in me applies the psychological theory lens. And this is a book about 3 people, whether it's 3 people or the same person, who are obsessed. And there is the moment when Victor and Robert have the conversation where Victor says, I see you have the same thing in you that I have.
Yes, he acknowledges that obsession. Yeah.
Yes, and he's like, don't do it. Don't be obsessed like me. And I'm going to tell you this story, and here's why. But then the creature is obsessed as well. And so there's this, they all have this driving thing. And obviously the moral lesson is don't be that guy. Yeah. And you can look at who she's around. If you do the biographical criticism, her husband, Lord Byron, her dad, and her mom. Mm-hmm. Her mom died shortly after she was born, but her mom was very obsessed. She wrote the seminal work on feminism. Like if she's the grandmother of science fiction, her mother's the grandmother of feminist literature, feminist thought, and the vindication of the rights of women. Her mom was openly bisexual, and her dad was openly bisexual. So this whole grew up with but they were all obsessed with ideas. They were all obsessed with changing the world. And then she's with these 2 loons. Yeah. Spending your time with Lord Byron and her husband. They're insane. So in a different way, like I said, drug-addled lunacy. So there is this conversation, as the only sane woman in the room, who could be Margaret, right? Sort of standing by watching the madness. So
no, I like the idea. It's an interesting concept of this side. I like this idea of he's just because I also don't know. Like you say, I like you say it's like when you said DID, or sort of like. I actually thought you meant for a minute. I was like, I thought you were going to invent Dungeons and Dragons. I was like, oh, he's making this shit up as like a
no,
like
that would be amazing too.
Which he's just gone.
I
I'm
didn't
stuck in
even
this
think
ice,
about
and
that.
I'm just
You're gonna tell
writing
this story.
just telling the story, and I'm going to
Dungeon
make it up.
Master. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just gone complete Dungeon Master.
Yeah, you rolled a 4. William dies.
That's it. Everything happens at random because he's there with a 12-sided dice, just going.
I
What
love
happens?
that. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Because it does have a randomness to it.
Yeah.
And so, one thing I want to get to, and I think is going to be a theme throughout this, and I've sort of been playing it over in my head in the last couple of days, having watched the Del Toro version, having seen the response online to the Del Toro version, and then going back, and I'm a fan of the James Whale, the Universal Monsters. I love both that and Bride of Frankenstein. I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for the Kenneth Branagh one,
I
despite it being...
really do like the Kenneth Branagh one a lot. I do think that's an interesting, and he's such an interesting filmmaker anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And choosing Robert De Niro to play the creature is a sort of a choice,
Yeah.
It
was a choice.
It's a choice.
No doubt about that. Yeah.
So there's things like that, and you go, okay, different versions of the creature, right? But the most recent version, and there is this wave of interpretation that the creature is sort of almost is the victim and is good and all this other stuff. Okay. And I would say that is wholly there in the 2025 version. He's mistreated and all this other stuff, and he's kind of like a whipped puppy and all these other things, right? When you read the book, though, when you hear his story and the reason he then takes his revenge on Victor, I'm going to put it into, he's a whiny bitch. Like, it's the most emo stuff. He's an incel for all intent and purposes. Like,
he is absolutely is an incel. He's like, you need to make me a girl.
But more than that, he's just sort of like, no one likes me because I'm ugly, so I'm going to hate the human race. And you go, dude, when you get to how he introduced himself, like, it's I love the whole sequence of him watching this family.
I love that part,
and
that is
how
really
they're
great.
Yeah, the small kindnesses amongst the family, and you find out how they were exiled from France and all this other stuff. Like, brilliant, love that whole section. Like, it's amazing. There is I do think there's this kind of weird thing that Shelley has about poverty. That, they're poverty, but they were well-to-do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no true. All the real true poor people in this book are kind of awful at times, but like this film were lovely, but they were because they were well-to-do. They were well, society-born kind of thing.
That's such a good point. I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. That is true.
Yeah, because when he gets to Auckland and to Ireland and anywhere else where he actually gets with actual like poor people, they're all kind of like really rough and really like hot. They're really all like he looks down on them. So I think there's a social class thing there. But I love that bit of, but when he introduces himself he goes in, sort of talks to the blind guy, and then the family turn up, and the creature just turns to the blind guy. Is like, you are my salvation. You have to defend me. And it's all like he puts everything on this one guy in an instant, and then he's confused why this family go, who's this nutter in our house? Like,
right?
What's going on?
Who? Because when they come in, he doesn't like stand up and put his hands up. He doesn't like say friends, because at this point he even talks like he's got the little gargly voice, but his diction is good. He speaks perfect French because he learned from listening to them.
Yeah.
And so he instead of standing up and saying, "Friends, I'm the spirit of the wood, hear me out," what he does is he grabs the old man by the legs.
Yes,
and so if you're his family and you show up and there's this hulking monster grabbing your grandpa by the legs, you're like, whoa, what is up? And so but again, now part of it is he doesn't know how to people.
No, which is fine. And I get that.
But I hear what you're saying. Like, yes, he constantly puts himself in harm's way, and I do appreciate that his argument was, well, maybe the blind person won't hate me because I'm ugly, and there's definitely
I love that
right, and I think that I do think like she's making a valid point about how we treat beauty. Now,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair, she literally above her bed was like this giant portrait of her mother, like an idyllic portrait of her
Yeah.
mother that her dad made her sleep under. So, like, okay, that's no
Mm-hmm.
pressure, kid. Here's the greatest female writer of your generation. Also,
Mm-hmm.
she's hot. Also, you sleep under her. Get out
Yeah.
there. And your name is also her name. Like she's
You're
Mary
literally in her
Wollstonecraft
shadow. You are literally
Jr.
in her
Yeah.
shadow. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah, so but there is that whole thing about looks that matter. And especially and we know this hasn't gotten any better for women
Absolutely
in
not.
2025. So
No.
you are absolutely right on all of that. But right, he so there is a conversation to be had there, but you're right. I like that you're saying the monster is just a whitey bitch. He definitely does I like it. I like if it were if it were now, if it were like the early aughts, he would definitely be like listening to skateboarder emo and like painting like he'd read The Crow.
Oh yeah. No. And take it seriously. And he'd
Take
have a
it
blog.
seriously.
And
Yeah.
he'd have a blog about it
Yeah,
as
yeah. And
well.
he'd be like, and the blog would be called I am Eric Draven. And it would be
Yes.
like that. Yeah. I
And
love
here's
that. Okay.
and here's my dark poetry. But he is a villain. I mean, he is a villain. Like there is, he chooses, and I think the thing is, like as you say, like him and Victor are both villains. Like
Yeah.
Victor is neglectful. He is, he very much is this. But the creature kills Elizabeth like without any, later
And
on.
William, the way that, and then
William is the one that bothers me the most.
oh, because he's the littlest brother. So
Mm-hmm.
there's also Ernest, who's like we just forget about.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. And Ernest. Like Ernest lives at the end. Like
he's off saving Christmas.
He's just off, right? Fantastic. Nice deep cut. So yeah, but so William is like a little boy. He's actually like the reason the mom dies, right? Is like she sort of dies after having William. And so he's a little boy, at the time. And Victor or the monster's just like, yep. And the way that he describes it too, like we get a flashback scene, like we know William dies off page, but then when the monster tells his story, he makes sure he reminds everybody, I didn't have to kill him.
Oh, well, the thing with Victor,
what I wanted to.
The thing with the death of Victor is he comes across him. William. He doesn't know who he is, but he comes across this boy and he decides to introduce himself. Like he gets seen.
Correct.
And then the boy goes, whoa, bloody hell, and sort of throws a fit. And he grabs
calls him an ogre. He thinks he's an ogre. Yeah.
He is. I mean, he's hulking, as you said. He's a big guy.
Right.
And but then the monster says, "Why do you?" He grabs him and shakes him and says, "Why do you recall, from me?" And the boy says, "You're going to eat me, and I'm going to basically tell my brother Victor, about you, kind of thing. Like my brother's going to come and beat you up." And it's in that instant when he realizes who he is and who he has a connection. And he says, like, you basically just, I choked him out.
Yeah, he's like, you are my enemy. You're a little boy. And he does. And it's like, whoa, it's
shocking.
That is where, we would rather that you stay in and write your bad poetry.
Yes.
Do that.
Yeah.
Right. There was no reason. No, and that is when the turn is, because I'm with you up to that point in the book, you're with the creature.
Yes.
At the beginning when you hear Robert or when Robert meets Victor and it's Victor's side of the story, it's like, oh, but then you meet then the creature shows up and he's like, now let me tell you my story. And you're like, cool. And then he tells his story. And then, but it is still, the creature doesn't tell Robert the story. The creature tells Victor the story and Victor it's like secondhand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a bit of a telephone game. So of course Victor could be like, and then he totally choked out my brother.
Yeah.
What a dick. And we don't know because, he could be painting him in that light. But if we're taking it at face value, that's the moment when you as the reader are no longer on his side.
Mm-hmm. Or you shouldn't be. But I think this is,
yes. Yeah.
Well, I think this is where it's got lost in most recently. There is this kind of, Victor is the total villain and there's this kind of whitewashing of the acts of the creature.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels weird, and I feel that there's that. I think Del Toro's version, if we, as we jump to that, kind of is that thing of going, well, no, I'm going to make sure the creature is this, softly spoken, erudite thing, and his revenge or his frustration is completely justified.
Right.
And you go, okay, well, it works to the film, but like it doesn't feel to the book, where I'm like, that thing at the end of the obsession, which is
the key to it all. Yeah.
Which is the creature's obsessed with, the pursuit of it. He is now driving Victor to this pursuit, and because and Victor's pursuit is his obsession, and then obviously you get to Robert Walton and stuff. So you're like, obsession is the key to this. But like, I think sometimes the films kind of miss that everyone in this is as bad as each other.
Everybody sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, this is definitely a book full of people who are total dicks, and I do think but I think that's important too, though. And I also think when you think about what Shelley's writing about, is that all these people that we hold up as heroes, like she's there, like for those of you who don't know, buckle up. If you didn't know this about Lord Byron, I'm sure, I don't know how much you guys learn about Lord Byron, but I'm sure you're already grinning, so you know how he knocked up his own sister. Not a great guy.
Yeah.
Not a good guy. Thumbs down. But historically, you're like when I first learned about Lord Byron, he's Lord Byron.
Absolutely.
He's like, you read his poetry is amazing. Well, he's also on all the drugs, and he, knocked up it's his, in his defense, he says she's his half sister. Ew.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. You're wrong. And then obviously with Shelley, her, they're just like all these things, these everyone's a villain. And again, her dad is like considered a hero, but it's still her dad. Like if you and I went on to save the world, our kids would still be like, eh.
Yes.
Remember that time?
Yeah,
Remember that time he told me no?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is some of that, like, and so that is what she really gets across in this book. And I think you nail it, is like, nobody is good. And I think it's very intentional on her part that everybody sucks.
But the thing is, like you say, you see this, because we know as the reader that everybody sucks by the end of the story.
Correct.
But there is this kind of thing of like, for Victor, like there's a whole part of his life that like his family, his dad and his brothers and Elizabeth, don't really know about.
Yeah, no, that's true at all.
And they keep saying to him about like, oh, my dear Victor, you are the kindest and wonderful, and even like Robert at the end of it, Walton sort of describes him sort of saying that he was haggard and worn out, but like, what an exquisite creature this gentleman must have been in his sort of prime kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's this version of Victor that the public see, that the public know, and we're going like, oh, we get that. There's this kind of contemplative and he's nice around his family, and he's kind of like, when he's depressed, they're all sort of rushing to his side. But we also know that he spent 3 years in a laboratory toying with dead things, and
he didn't talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just disappeared, just dropped out of life, and you're like, oh, cool, that's cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. They all still hero worship him. They think he's just off learning his natural philosophy, which is what they called medicine at the time, and so they don't know. They think he's out there
doing good,
learning to be a doctor, and he is technically doing that. And all the film versions cut that. Like, he's not Dr. Frankenstein. That never happens. He doesn't graduate.
He never makes it. Yeah, exactly. He's just Victor Frankenstein. Yeah.
He's just douchebag McGee.
Yeah.
And I get why you cut that. I understand why in the adaptations you're like, well, it makes more sense for this. But I also think you can see the DNA of like why Flatliners is obviously inspired by this, right? Like Flatliners is because they're still medical students. Like Flatliners is maybe one of the coolest Frankenstein adaptations of all. And you don't think of it as a Frankenstein adaptation, but it is, because they're med students fucking around with things they shouldn't be fucking around with. And look what happens. It comes to get them. And that reboot of the second Flatliners, which is not very good, but which is still technically in universe, because Kiefer Sutherland's playing the same character, you find out at the end. That one, they literally come after them. So like, that is clearly this, like, your creations are coming to get you when you're fucking around with life.
And I love the fact that there's this thing of the adaptation as we sort of move into this sort of section, how it is interpreted in different ways. Because there are the Frankenstein adaptations, right? As you said, like James Whale's or Kiefer Sutherland's, or all these other versions that have come out. And then there's the kind of, by proxy kind of adaptations.
Yeah.
And they're sometimes the more interesting ones. I mean, I mentioned Lovecraft before because you can't talk about Frankenstein without Herbert West Reanimator, which
which I know how you love Reanimator.
I love the story. I love the film. I think they're amazing. And that's why the second one, got Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator. Like it knows exactly what it is. And it's the same story. Like Lovecraft just went, that's really interesting. Obsessive is then killed by, or maybe killed by his own creations and stuff. But I'm going to put a silly twist on it. And so, I like these kinds of things of like, playing God and your creation comes back to take its revenge.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands.
Absolutely. Yeah. Edward Scissorhands are great, one of the things that sort of I this is kind of a well-written thing. There's nothing really I think we can comment on this that hasn't been sort of mentioned or written about before, but even in the story, and this is one of the things where I think it does get lost, is the fact that like even the creature reads Paradise Lost.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he places himself in both the role of Adam and of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he acknowledges, is like, no, I'm, I am the nemesis. I am the sort of like, if Victor is God, the creator, then I am the sort of the
I'm the
anti-creator.
creation, I'm the creation and the villain. Yeah.
I am the fallen creation, that has been bypassed and stuff. And I think so even when she's writing it, so the fact to be like she's going, I'm writing this, but even I know I'm sort of like I'm pulling from other themes and other writings that have come before.
Yeah.
So, but I don't see that in that kind of the Paradise Lost sort of elements of it, because it's a monster movie, often gets lost as part of the later translation.
Well, isn't that the case of all horror? Unfortunately, like the story, like because it's a monster movie, because it's Night of the Living Dead, you forget that it is a complete commentary on Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
Right? Like George Romero is a genius. I love his daughter just put out Queens of the Dead, which I haven't seen yet. I'm very excited. Drag queens fighting zombies. And it's Tina Romero. Tom Savini's going to be in it, apparently. I cannot wait to see it. Oh, my God. Come on. So, like, I'm sure Tom does the special effects, too. Like, keeping it in the family. I'm very excited about that. But when you think about how, like, Birth of a Nation, which is an awful piece, like, don't go watch it. But what happens at the end is, that kill the hero. They kill the black guy at the end. And what happens at the end of Night of the Living Dead? Kill the black guy at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like the zombies are still walking around, but we killed the black guy at the end. And it's like, and Romero is always like, no, that's just my friend who I wanted to be the actor. Well, it can be both, George. We know, like, because he was, so like he almost hurt the horror genre by always playing it down by saying it's just a silly zombie movie. But every one of his movies, and I think he's a genius, has so much to say. Like a good zombie movie is a commentary on all things: racism, consumerism, the military-industrial complex, the capitalism run amok. Like if you just walk through the Romero series.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is so true. It gets lost because monster movie. It gets lost because, well, it's a zombie movie, so it can't have anything to say, or it's a story about a creature. And so, but even in that original Frankenstein, which is a quick story. I mean, the original movie's like 80 minutes long, right? Like Corman would have loved it. He was probably like, 3 reels and we're out. But even that, it's like that movie has something to say, but because you get lost in the Karloff of it, even there's even like audiobook versions that still have the Karloff monster on the cover. And you're like, wait, that's not, that is again undercutting the point of the story.
Yeah, and I think this is the interesting thing about something like about Frankenstein in particular, and all the classic monsters. I think this is that thing of, it's happened with Dracula. You go back and you read Dracula, and the most recent version, like Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
I've not watched yet. Is that good?
But it is actually, I'd recommend it. If we're going in the Gothic kind of tradition.
Yeah,
but the depiction of their Count Orlok, kind of their Nosferatu, is much closer to the description of Dracula in the book.
Right.
And those sorts of
Okay.
things. And you're going like, oh,
Nice.
yeah, he wasn't Bela Lugosi in this dashing cape and, with this.
It wasn't Gary Oldman.
No, exactly. Those creatures of the night, what music they make, all that kind of stuff like that comes later, but it becomes the pop culture sort of image of that. And I think that's the same with Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And so, now you get Hotel Transylvania, and it's sort of like the picture of the idea of Frankenstein is this thing. It's recognizable and it works. It's kind of good fun. But you're going, yeah, but that's not, we've lost that source material. We've lost that touch to what it was. And so, yeah, I do sort of feel it's I'm glad to go to the translation. I'm glad that these more, I don't see it. I know faithful is probably the wrong word, because seeing Del Toro's version, it's not faithful. Really, it's got certain aspects, but at least I like the fact it's going for a different pace. It's not just going, this is a monster movie. Rah. It's doing something. It has something it wants to say. So I appreciate it's been a translation. But let's jump to that, because obviously we've talked about the book. So let's talk about let's go from the beginning to the most recent, and we'll fill in the gaps. So what are your feelings on Del Toro's sort of Frankenstein?
Well, my initial reaction was, and I may have sent you this message right away, I don't remember when I sent it to you, I was like, I really loved the score. So that tells you something, when the thing that hangs with you, and I looked up who did the score. It's Desplat, as we would say in America. And he's done a lot of Del Toro stuff. He's done Wes Anderson stuff. He's done lots of really good scores. But this score, and he actually did I had it here, the Valerian score.
Oh, okay.
The score for Valerian, which again, you and Julian had a long conversation about Valerian. I lean towards Julian on that one. I do think it's good fun. I think it's miscast, but it's still a ton of fun, that movie. But again, the score to me, and that he'd sit, was the best thing about it. And there's like some really interesting score choices too. Like during the creation scene, there's like almost like a clockwork, almost like a jaunty, worky song, like almost like Tori Amos's "Happy Worker" from Toys. I was like, wow, what the fuck is going on here? So to me, when the best thing you can say about it is the score. So again, this is my fault. This is not Del Toro's fault. I wanted it to be something else. And so I had different expectations.
Yeah.
And so that was a me problem. I'm glad we didn't talk about it the next day after I watched it. It had been a couple weeks. I still don't love it. I still, with you, I'm like, if you're doing like a Frankenstein adaptation, like a straight that's called Frankenstein, I still would rather watch. If I'm going to watch one, I'd rather watch Brana's than this. Because this is my big question. If he was like, what the fuck is the superhero powers about? Why is he Wolverine? What is that?
That bit,
or the Hulk, I guess. What I don't understand.
Well, no,
Help
I
me.
think Well, I don't know, and this is the thing. Like, maybe this is, we don't know. Maybe this is actually a real secret part of James Gunn's DC universe, and actually this leads into Creature Commandos. I don't know.
Maybe
that's not the case.
That's pretty good.
Wow. But yeah, no, that was one of the for me. I'm always a fan of like a luscious, sort of set, and sort of like, sumptuous costume design and all that kind of like, big stuff. And I know Del Toro sort of thrills that. Like, I love practical sets, and I love the fact that these things existed. I think the costuming is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, it looks incredible. Like that.
It looks incredible. It will win all the cinematography awards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's beautiful to look at. I kind of think, and I'm gonna get blasted for this, I kind of think Mia Goth is kind of overrated. I think she's fine. I think she's very good in things.
I've not seen a ton of her in things. I know she's in those X movies, which I haven't seen.
Yeah.
I thought I'd rather have had Lady Gaga play this role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time she was on screen, I was like, oh, was Lady Gaga busy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, like, I think that's what I think. That would have been better. I gotta say, like, and then she shows up. She pops up in Wednesday. So it even made it worse because like, oh, there she is.
Yeah. But I mean, you mentioned Wednesday to mention sort of like, Tim Burton. I found that like, Del Toro and Tim Burton have this kind of, there's a parallel kind of feel to them. Very different styles, but this parallel sort of feel to them, where it is about the cinematography, it's about the set design, it's about the aesthetic and that sort of thing. And so I'm all good with that. I think Oscar Isaacs does a great job. I think forget the guy's name who plays the creature.
Aldori, Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob Eldori Jacob Eldori does a cracking job. Christoph Waltz is always good.
None of them. I don't fault. Yeah, I'm with you. Goff was the weakest link of the performers. That's not the I'm with you. I think the performers were fine. I'm not mad at anybody except Del Toro.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one that and even like the special effects, like the bit in the where he's presenting this sort of like the partial body that comes to life and catches the ball and that.
That was so cool.
Yeah, like that's where I was like, I mean, I'm sold. You've got me. But you're right. When the creature becomes a superhero, he's like super strong, and he's got healing factor and all this other stuff. I'm like,
what?
What? I don't get this. It kind of reading the book, like the fact that he can die, but he's resilient because he does all this stuff. But he gets shot in the book, and it takes him like several weeks to heal from it. So
yeah, because he says he doesn't even know if the ball is in him or through him, and it's just like pain. Yeah.
So to have the superpower bits, it made it feel a bit like I was like, oh, this is a modern take. Like you are making the creature the hero, and this is now going to be. Did you ever see Dracula Unbound with Evans?
Luke Evans.
Luke Evans.
Yes.
Right. I think it's an underrated film. I think it's kind of fun. It's the sort of the origin of Dracula
it's
becoming Dracula. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's good fun. It kind of feels, and it has this thing of like he ends up becoming a vampire in order to take on the invading forces and all that kind of stuff. All good, but he becomes this kind of like immortal, and so the film ends with this cutscene to the future of him now in modern day, which is a kind of like the tease of what it could be. But there is this kind of sense of these classic monsters are immortal, and they're always going to be sort of walking the earth. But like, I'm like, okay, well, are you trying to say something with that then? Is this a kind of, you can never destroy the...
I didn't think about that. That's really good. That gives it... You've given me a why, because I didn't have one before.
I'm not sure that's what he's thinking, but it kind of like I'm sure there's that, you could...
Well, you and Julian rewrite shit all the time when you're watching. So this is, you have tons of practice. You guys do this shit. No, I like that. Frankenstein is immortal. The monster is immortal.
The creature is immortal.
Yeah, creature's forever.
Because, and I think more so because everyone forgets that Victor Frankenstein is the person, it's the monster that everyone goes to. So you can have that argument. But the fact even in this film, it's an emo version. Like I get that, but like there is this kind of weird sense of what I would call monster. It's the thing I see on social media, like the hear me out. Basically, like women are like, hear me out, and they'll put up the creature, and I'm like, really? All right, well, you go, you do you, because that's weird, but
yeah. Well, that's what this is, though. Because there's the moment, like this version of Elizabeth. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Elizabeth in the book that she's like essentially a kept woman her whole life. Like her mom adopts her so that she can be Victor's eventual wife.
Yes.
But they're raised as siblings. She calls them cousins, but then they ultimately get married. Yikes. this version of Elizabeth has a lot more agency. So you think I'd be here for that? Because I always think Elizabeth, like like I always thought if I were ever to do a retelling of Frankenstein, I'd want it to be from Elizabeth's perspective of like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Why did they adopt me? This is gross. Like, that whole thing, and she has the right to sort of be an angry emo girl, but she isn't. This Elizabeth, who's a scientist in her own right and has a lot going on, and I think there's a lot of cool ideas there. I don't necessarily understand why she has to be married to the brother to then still want to be that, just for reasons. So I hear you, and I do think that's interesting, and I do think this is a very Del Toro thing when you go like like people, the women, the very attractive or even the conventionally unattractive woman, but still somehow alluring, like in The Shape of Water, like Sally. You're just like, What is it about you? Why? What is it about you? Like, but you get it, and she falls in love with the monster. And in this, she falls in love with the monster, and obviously Del Toro really wants the conventionally attractive or conventionally unattractive, but somehow alluring emo girl to fall in love with the monster.
Well, this is. I mean, this is. Let's be clear. This is a continuation of the Tim Burton aesthetic. This is Winona Ryder and Edward Scissorhands. This is, that kind of.
It is.
That's the kind of thing they're looking at. But I think what I like Shape of Water. I think it's a good film. I think and it has exactly that same thing of like we're going to take. That not so much a classic monster because that's a 50s kind of creation, but the Gillman, and I'm going to translate it into this kind of gothic fairy tale kind of sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he's good at that. And I took this, and the way I sort of approached this was in that vein. So I love I like Shape of Water. I love Crimson Peak. Which is his kind of gothic romance ghost story.
Yep.
Which I think I love that film. And this is his gothic romance, emo Frankenstein. And so I kind of sort of see them going like, oh yeah, this is his collection of things. Like you got to take this as a fairy tale that sort of, I'm thinking like in that sense of like Pan's Labyrinth and that kind of in that vein that. Okay, this is going to be different, but you're going to have to take this as almost as a this is not a statement on obsession. This is not a statement on feminism or anything like that. This is a fairy tale, and in a fairy tale, you have an unconventional hero, and in this case, it's the creature.
Right. I'm here. I'm here for that. And do you think? I mean. Unfortunately, he hired an actor with a face to do it instead of Doug Jones. I'm always team Doug Jones. When you can have Doug Jones, he deserved an award for Shape of Water.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. He's this there's in Disco. Did you watch Star Trek Discovery? Dude, she's good God. The way he moves, the way that he commands his body and moves in a certain way, and he's just such a great actor. And I know that David Hyde Pierce said after he saw the original Hellboy, he wanted his name taken off of it because he's like, sure, it's my voice, but there's nothing about that's me.
Well, he refused to come. He refused to come back for the sequel because he was like,
for that reason, he wanted Doug to. Yeah,
he was like, well, he even heard that the recordings. It was like, we're not that different,
right? You don't need me. You've got, and I appreciated him. He's like, because Doug Jones. So so there's always that thing, and I do think that Aldori or Aldor, I don't know how to say his name. He's definitely trying to do that because he definitely moves in a certain way, and there's definitely a lot of physicality to him. And I guess but Doug Jones is a big guy too. I mean, he could do a lot. So no, I hear everything that you're saying, and that's definitely what is happening here. And there is clearly, but there is a through line of Del Toro, and of course, all roads lead to this. I don't know what he could do next. It's almost like, you did Frankenstein. All roads, when you look at everything he's been doing, has all roads lead to Frankenstein. So is that
absolutely
it now for him?
No, this is it. I mean, he did Pinocchio as well. That was
right, same thing,
which had a very sort of similar sort of tone and sort of thing. I don't know. I think. I mean, he takes a long time to make films, so maybe this is it. Maybe he is I'm done and I'll just produce things from now on. Maybe I don't know, but I do see that like we're going through a phase. If you were to, you could take Del Toro's back catalog. I would remove the Hellboy element. Right, I like the Hellboy films. I love the Hellboy films. They're great. But if you look at a lot of his things, starting really with like, well, go back to like Kronos and the Devil's Backbone, and you've got those sort of takes, but really from like Pan's Labyrinth, everything has been a fairy tale. Like it's that he's like, let's return the horror to fairy tales. Let me tell you a true grim, grim fairy tale sort of with the Grimm brothers styling, and I appreciate that. What's interesting, I do think that like, we had Nosferatu this year, as I say, like he almost pairs with Robert Eggers. You've got like Eggers is going.
I definitely need to see that. I need to see it.
Well, if you watch his, Eggers has gone like, you're doing that kind of lusciously coloured fairy tale, grim fairy tale. I'm gonna do this like dark folk tale version of all this other stuff. I'm gonna give you the witch. I'm gonna give you the sort of the lighthouse. I'm gonna give you the Northman. I'm gonna give you these kind of really dark, dirty versions of these stories, which could be presented in a Del Toro fashion, but it's like, no, I'm going to go this other way. So I definitely think there's this weird pairing between them. And I like the fact they're approaching monsters and dark stories, but without going like, oh, we're going to do, sort of a standard approach. So I do think they have a place.
No, well, okay, but then this is my question. So I hear that they all do have a place, and so obviously, as you talk about things pairing, so we think about when the Frankenstein, when Brana's Frankenstein come out, we also got that Dracula right around that time, right? The mid-90s, Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, So what we have coming up is Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride.
Yes,
and I gotta say, so we watched. So I said to Lee, I was like, hey, I'm gonna watch the Del Toro's Frankenstein, because I'm going to go on Scott's show. And she's like, okay, we started watching the trailer. She was halfway through. She's like, gong, you can watch that. She's like, she said, what that does is just, because we'd already seen the trailer, just the teaser, that quick teaser where Jessie Buckley's got that ink all over her face, whatever that is, because it's in black and white. It just looks amazing. I can't wait. And so that was like, what the fuck is going on? And like, so then what Lee said is, well, seeing that trailer just made me want to see The Bride even more.
Yes.
Right. So what do you make of that? Because like, so there's that, right? There's this whole, is that next for Del Toro? Is that the Mia Goth? Like, was that what he was hoping for, was to get Mia Goth back in his own Bride of Frankenstein later? Because he definitely is loving. So I say all that because it always seems that, and then there was The Bride. We didn't even talk about like the Sting, Jennifer Beals, The Bride, right? So, and again, there's always this, while these other people are doing it, then there's like, oh, we've got this. And there was that original Bride of Frankenstein. Obviously, none of that's in the story. In the story, we know Victor does not make a bride. And so this is all very what if. So what do you make of that, then, this commentary that, Gyllenhaal's Maggie's been working on this for a couple of years, right?
And it's a passion project.
And people are like, should she get all that money? And you're like, stand down. Nobody says, come on. Nobody complained about how much money Del Toro is spending or Eggers is spending on their weird, dark movies. So there's still, it's just this interesting. So that's my big question for you, is hearing all of that. And you're like, we're always telling these stories. So what about the brides of it all? Like those like the original Bride of Frankenstein, and then the Jennifer Beals Bride, and now these new brides and these other bride versions. There was one, I haven't watched it yet, with one of those Sprouse twins. It looked like a really campy version of The Bride that came out, Victoria Frankenstein or something, not that long ago. It looked like it was almost like a campy 80s version. I haven't watched that yet. But anyway, that's my question to you. So to hearing all that, hearing what you're saying about Eggers, and they're telling these dark stories, like where these bride ones are almost leaning into the camp. What is that about?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because again, like when I was, when you first watched Frankenstein, the original 1930s, sort of like, it's a tragic story. Like, it's sort of, it has some elements of sort of like dark humor, because James Whale was a kind of weird dude. But then you watch Bride of Frankenstein and you go, oh yes, yes, and then you watch it as an adult and you go, oh, this thing's a comedy. Like, this thing is legit making fun of certain things. It's and
of itself.
of
too.
itself. Yeah, like
Self-referential.
it kind of recognizes how silly some of this stuff is.
Yeah.
But the bride in the Bride of Frankenstein is in it for like all of like 5 minutes. Like
Correct.
she is,
Yeah.
she's brought about, and then they sort of like she rejects,
She's got
spoilers
a
for
look. Yeah.
spoilers for a 90-year-old film, but she rejects him, and so the hair and this other thing, and then the creature sort of says, maybe we belong dead, and flicks the switch, and it kills them. And that's it. I mean, that's the film. Like, you go like, oh shit, it's a great film. But there has been this thing about, well, how do we treat the bride? Because she is not a figure of agency in that first film. She is literally the MacGuffin for the entire film.
100%. Yeah.
And so she's become this kind of figure. Like, even like, again, we joked about Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
Like, DC has a bride, a Frankenstein, in their Creature Commandos.
Sure.
So she has sort of taken on her own but I think there's this sort of because she doesn't have her own literary history, like Victor Frankenstein and the Creature have this sort of literary sort of, and the same with Dracula. Like, you can take Dracula and you can make it sound like campy and stuff, but there's always this fallback to it being like a literary thing. Like Stoker wrote this book and da da da. And no matter how campy you think the Bram Stoker's Dracula was from 1990, whatever, like, it's still got that literary sort of feel to it, and they're taking some elements of it seriously. But with the bride, she's sort of much more open to be interpreted from a pop culture perspective.
Yeah.
Some for good, some for bad. But that means that, like, she's not baggaged with as much analysis or and all this other stuff that's sort of been done before. So you can sort of go, well, we can do it through this sort of this sort of channel or that sort of channel or whatever. And so this new one, I've seen the full trailer, and
looks awesome.
It looks amazing. I mean, it's it's striking. I think the cinematography looks great. I think that everyone in it looks interesting. What's it, Christian Bale like playing the creature, and sort of like
she's got her brother in it. Jake's in it.
Yeah. And so you watch it and I go like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a tragedy, or this is going to be sort of a statement about women being an object. Like, she's going to gain her own agency. Like, I'm assuming there's more to it than that we're seeing.
Than what in everything. Well, because this is why I asked, because I hear what you're saying, and I totally get. And again, you're making me. I've not seen the Eggers thing, but obviously I need to see it. Like, hearing you talk about it, I'm like, obviously I need to watch that, because I didn't like that when you're talking about that commentary and the folklorian of it and that idea of it being, like you said, but that is also still rooted in this really literary thing. And so there is this idea of, and I'm actually kind of glad that Maggie's movie is taking so long and she's working so hard on it and everything, because I think it's probably going to, the fact that it comes out after Del Toro's Frankenstein and the internet has had their chance to react, which I've not seen. I've not paid attention to that, but I'm sure there's hot takes everywhere. We're now on the internet having hot takes, so I understand that. But we're also we're having measured ones. We've done the things, we're not just like whatever. So I'm sure I already can tell without it happening that the movie comes out in March. By February, Maggie's getting review bombed because it's a woman making a story about a woman, right? 100%. But I do think everything that you just said is totally right, is like there's also that freedom of like the film, The Bride of Frankenstein, and then all of the Bride since our commentary, not just on the films, The Frankenstein, but on the book, Frankenstein. Like it doesn't have to, they can act as literary criticism instead of adaptation, because you're so free to do whatever you want with this character. And to be like, and again, this goes back to my point about Elizabeth having no agency in the entire book. And the only woman that sort of we think has some agency is Margaret Walton, Seville or whatever, but like we don't actually ever see her.
No.
Right? So there's like three women in all of Frankenstein: the mother who dies, the wife, daughter, cousin, sister who dies, and then this other sister who's like angelic and has is perfect. So you still have like these three, the woman who's the angel or the whore or the mother, right? So they're all on display in Frankenstein. And so like, is the bride going to get to be that? So it's like, again, we haven't seen it yet, so we can't talk on it. But I love your analysis of why those brides exist. And we keep coming back to the idea of the bride as commentary on and being free from the book, but also totally about the book.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing I think you can, you say about like going back to zombies and sort of all those kind of things. Yeah, you can do them in different takes. You can say, yes, this is, Romero's is this commentary on consumerism for Dawn of the Dead, that kind of thing.
So good. Yeah.
Or you can go Shaun of the Dead, and you can say, yeah, it's about people being slaves to the everyday world and sort of like to social media and to like we are just zombies in the world. So you can utilize them in different ways, and I feel that where Frankenstein's monster is, you can liberate it from the book, and you can use it in certain ways, like as a DC superhero, if you wish.
Which he is. He absolutely is. Yeah.
Or you can do films like Van Helsing, where you have the creature in
everything. Yeah, you're right.
But again, even in that, like the creature is trapped within that literary thing of being sort of a victim and utilized and sort of like seeks out revenge against that version of Dracula and that sort of thing. So it's still tethered to that kind of thing. Yeah, but with the bride, I think, as you say, is able to sort of be much more flexible. Like the zombies, like you can sort of, okay, the bride is going to be this or the bride's going to be that, as long as she's given agency. I mean, again, like Bride of Reanimator is a literal kind of retelling of the Bride of Frankenstein. Like,
right,
she is literally just a bod. The bride is a body in the basement that Herbert West is trying to reanimate. So as long as she's given extra, but there's other versions. There's Frankenhooker, which is a sort of
right.
A comedy take and sort of like sort of is or even like what's it called, the science one with Robert Downey Jr. in where they create Kelly LeBrock.
Weird Science.
Weird Science.
Yeah.
That kind of thing where like science gets out of hand and you can sort of go, it's just a sex object then. So this is about kids, and they create.
I also just to be really disgusting, but like to me, I hear that and you're totally right. But I also, if you look at Weird Science, it's also like what would happen if she's also Mary Poppins, but like for adolescent boys with hormone problems. Like literally, she shows up when she needs you. She teaches all these lessons, and then she goes away at the end, even when you want her to stay. So it's like all those people who grew up having like weird tingles about Mary Poppins. That's what Weird Science also is. But yes, you are correct. It is definitely the Bride of Frankenstein, and Kelly LeBrock definitely.
Yeah. So you
knew
can
that
sort of,
when she played that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and you can adjust it in different ways. So I'm excited for the bride.
I am too. Yeah, and I thanks for letting me. I know that's not necessarily what this was, but I did want to go down that path with it because I feel like, and especially hearing you, I'm glad you did that because I would not have thought to compare to Eggers' Nosferatu, but of course, then as soon as you said it, like right, and in the '90s they did it, and then in the '80s, we had the Jennifer Beals The Bride, but there's always that. And then there was like, you talked about, there's the DC superhero version of Frankenstein. And then was it like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, they used the I Frankenstein, the Dean Koontz I Frankenstein that they, with Aaron Eckhart in the film. Which look, Emma and I went and my kid Emma loves trash movies. Like that is a thing. Like Emma sent me a thing the other day. It was like, you got to watch this movie, this zombie movie. It's on Tubi. It's called Blood Quantum. And one of the things that it's so bad, it takes place on a Native American reservation. One of the things, it's so good, dude. All I'm going to say is wood chipper.
Okay. I'll track it down.
Run, don't watch. But like Emma's like, oh my God. So we went and watched that. Like we're the only people in the theater watching that awful thing. But the whole point of it is, and that was not great. Aaron Eckhart's not his finest moment. You're like, you were also in Thank You for Smoking, and now you're in this. But that the story doesn't want to die. So we always continue to bring it back. But then there's like these times when it's prestige, right? And so like in the 90s, because of who did it, because it was Brana and it was Coppola. So therefore it was prestige. But when it's like this other jank thing, Sting and Jennifer Beals are in The Bride, so therefore it must be prestige. And so but it is still all just a commentary on it. So I guess that's for me, like historically speaking, we keep coming back to the story over and over. And I'm sure if we just typed in Mary Shelley's name in IMDb, there's probably 50 million things that people have stolen from the story. So the question is, and I like the connection to the other monster. Why? Why do you think we need to keep? We get why Del Toro, like I said, all roads lead to Frankenstein for him. So I'm worried about him because he finally told his Frankenstein story. So what's he going to do now? Everything has led to, especially considering he had his Elizabeth love the monster. And I'm like, okay, we're done. You're done now. Your story is complete.
I'll tell you what, right? Look, this has been a huge success for Netflix, right? His Cabinet of Curiosities is great and was a big success for Netflix. Give him the money, let him make At the Mountains of Madness. That's what I want. That's these other big pet projects that he's been sort of banging on about.
Where is he going to make?
No, he's been talking about for years. He's got a script. Like he wrote a script for At the Mountains of Madness.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess he can do whatever he wants now.
And that's what
he's
my
won
hope
his Oscars.
is.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Wow, I had no idea.
But this thing about monsters is
and
how we interpret them.
Yeah.
Well, this one in particular, because I think they all represent, or you can have them as representative of different things. We always sort of say, vampires are this idea of lust and sexual violence and all this other kind of things, and werewolf is, that inner animal, or other bits and pieces. Frankenstein to me has always been, especially from about the obsession, is basically this idea of our hubris as humans and our creations coming back and us learning the lessons of like, oh, we did not know what genie we were letting out the bottle when we did this.
Correct. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to just be a monster. Like, it's representative, but like people could say that about the internet. Like, oh, we were not ready.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that's what Terminator is essentially
absolutely
a Frankenstein's monster, right? I mean, Skynet is the monster, right? And John Connor, who didn't invent Skynet, maybe. It depends on which version you watch. And
depends
which
on,
you're in.
which timeline. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But regardless, right? You can easily look at the Terminator as a Frankenstein's monster that will not die. And that is obviously that story too. It's always being told. Yes, of course, technology, we've created our own demise because we are, and you could look at it from a playing God. Obviously, that's what is the theme in the book. But then you also like the internet, definitely that. Like Lee said the other day, she's like, do you think if Sir Berners-Lee knew, he would have, like, if he could he's smart enough to build his own time machine, would he go back to build his own time machine and stop himself from building the internet? Like, do you think every day Sir Berners-Lee wakes up and is like, shit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
looks at his phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And go, oh, bollocks. Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, if you were to extrapolate Frankenstein as a sort of this thing of, turning up. I mean, the three elements I would take from it is the most obvious is creating the thing of your own destruction. But also there's the element of being in denial, turning away from it at the point of creation and going like, not my responsibility, which I think we often do, which I think,
Sure.
And the third element is this thing of like, when it is confronting us, whether or not we capitulate to it. So, and I think we do this, and I think this is, if you were to really extrapolate this, you can say, right, we as humans are going to be our own destruction. Whether it be climate crisis or a nuclear war or AI, whatever the frig it is that kills us, it will be our fault.
Yeah.
And we will have had this obsession running up to it of going like, look how amazing this is. Industrial revolution, cybernetics revolution, whatever. Like, yeah, it's amazing. Look at the consumerism that's come out of it. And then going, oh, it's a bit shit and it's broken things. Not my fault. Not really going to face up to the consequences.
Right. Oh, you know what? And that's what it is. It's like the idea of saying, so like we as people who make things, we write essays, we put art in the world, we do these things. And, you always say like, okay, so my books are out in the world. People can like them or not like them. But I also have deliberately tried to not write things that are like I've not written a manifesto at any point in time, right? It's not like I put out art in the world. Nobody's going to read my novels and be like, I'm going to burn down the world. It's like my books. There's even a line in one of my books that even says, kindness is free, so the return on investment is infinite. So I will take credit for that. If someone says, hey, I read your book and I realized I was being a dick, yes. But you do say you put your art in the world and then people can interpret it on their own. But then there are people who put like hate out in the world who are deliberately, but like, I can't control what the mindless people say after like I've indoctrinated them and brainwashed them and now they're Nazis. That's not my fault. That's not my fault. Right, that's what you're saying is like you're like, oh, once you put it out there and you've turned it loose, you don't want to own it. And that can be the same with anything, like whether it's hate speech or whether it's whatever. Like right now in America, we're seeing the MAGA movement sort of eat itself, right? Because Trump created that. I love it, right? But he created it. Now it's like out to get him. Like he's created such, because he doesn't believe in anything except himself. He never believed anything that he said. He doesn't give a shit about anything. He doesn't want to go to jail, and he's a fucking racist, sexist, homophobe. Those are the things you need to know about Donald Trump. That's it, right? But so he makes the MAGA movement because it gets him elected. But now there are true believers who are like, wait, no, that's not what we signed up for. Like, you are not supposed to be the pedophile. You were supposed to stop the pedophiles. And so it's eating itself because they truly believed the QAnon stuff.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And whoever built QAnon, and nobody really knows who Q originally was, I hope that person like feels awful. Right?
They're like the evil Banksy, aren't they, really? They just go around.
Right, the evil Banksy. I love that. Oh my God, evil Banksy. That is so perfectly said. Because right, the difference is, but that person was like, well, I can't help that they're stupid. But you preyed on their stupid. You manipulated them. And like everybody with the way that the algorithm like pushes hate, that is deliberate. And so for Mark Zuckerberg to say, it's not my fault that the algorithm pushes hate. No, it is.
It is.
Actually
you wrote it.
That was your choice to do it. Your algorithm could be like, oh, I see you're really angry. Look at this hippo and puppy hugging. Isn't that nice? Look at this duck on the back of a giraffe.
Yeah.
What if every time somebody clicked on, some racist, sexist, homophobic thing, you sent them a picture of an orangutan cleaning a different orangutan, and you're like, oh,
yeah, the world's amazing. Cool, move on. Yeah,
right. But instead, you do that. So I think you made it exactly right, because it's like that idea of it's not my fault. Because Victor, right? Because Victor never really takes responsibility. There's even a line in the fucking book where he says, "That's not my fault." It absolutely is your fault.
Yes. Like there's this thing of like the creature just says like, I'm looking for love and acceptance. And Victor's like, not my problem. You're like, no, give him a hug. Just give him a hug. Tell him it's all gonna be all right.
Hug it out.
And, yeah. And it will be fine. You toxic masculine prick.
And there is so obviously, because in this version, in the Del Toro version, Victor's dad is an abusive, he literally is physically and emotionally abusive. And in the original book, he's really like, I want him to be my dad. He seems awesome.
Oh, he's wonderful.
He's like, I love my wife. I love my boys. Let's go play. Let's do this. And like every time he has a new kid, he's like, joy. And when they adopt Elizabeth, he's like, yes, whatever. He's like such a great guy. And in this version, the other one, it's like, and again, this goes to Burton, Spielberg, Del Toro. They all had bad dads. And we get to watch Spielberg and Burton and Del Toro work out their bad dads on TV and on film for us to see forever and ever and ever. That new season of Wednesday should have really just been called The Addams Family. Wednesday wasn't in it enough. Like the Wednesday and Enid stuff, which is what we love about Wednesday, was not there enough. But it was definitely like, oh, Tim Burton still got to work out shit with his dad. So we got to have Pugsley and Gomez just in case everybody forgot. Tim Burton's still working out shit with his dad. So there's that, right? That is happening here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's always a thing. And I think, but I think that's the thing, like, when we do, I think Frankenstein coming on when it did, the original sort of novel, it's interesting to me that this version, the science fiction, it hasn't got masses of kind of like, as you say, it doesn't explain the science, it doesn't need to, I don't need to know how, a quantum drive works or a flux capacitor.
Don't need,
Don't
right?
care.
Don't
Right?
care. When you try to explain it, it's going to piss me off because there's going to be holes in your explanations. So don't bother.
Absolutely. That's it. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, so I appreciate it. But what's interesting is this idea of technology and the use of technology creating something out of hand at the burgeoning sort of like, first wave of the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And I'm not saying she was like finger on the pulse kind of thing, going like, well, this is a bad idea. But
it is though. I'm sure. I mean, we do know that like electrifying frog legs and stuff was already happening at the time of her writing this. Like she could have seen that, and her dad was, a big thinker, and her mom was a philosopher, so she was around these people. Yeah.
Yeah.
She might have been like, that's freaky.
Well, it's kind of acknowledged in the book, but I did a bit of research, and one of the things I recently like, so she was in when she was in England, she was in Derby, and she was in Matlock, which is mentioned in the book. And in Derby, one of the things that she went to was a human dissection.
Oh,
so
wow.
She was, she went along and saw this one scientist who was suggest, as you reminded me by saying the electricity, he was making a claim that I can do it with frogs' legs. I'm pretty sure this is just how muscles work, and we can get other muscles to spasm. So like, he wasn't saying he could bring anyone back to life. But he was like, this is how these things work, and he was demonstrating this on different scales and dissecting bodies. So there is that thing of we've passed the sort of the age of the Renaissance and the age of reason, but we are now well into sort of like Burke and Hare territory, where we're sort of trying to put the depths and the mysteries of the human body together in a much more scientific way, whilst factories and mills are popping up all over the bloody place.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And I think you're right. And I do, I mean, and it is. The story is important to continue to tell. I do think I'm excited for The Bride. Yep. I am really geeked about it. I do think, and I'm sure, next week and next month, there'll be another Frankenstein, there'll be another thing. And you can, like you said, I mean, you can even I look at Flatliners as like taking inspiration from this. And the classics, like you said, you hit them. You've got werewolf, you've got Dracula, you've got the Frankenstein's monster, because those things capture all the hubris of humanity, the inner souls, and because we are, for the most part, not everybody, yeah, of course, but like historically speaking, we all believe in like old angry men in the sky, and we're always worried about them, whether the angry men in the sky are white, or the angry men in the sky are brown, or the angry men in the white, or whatever race they are. We're all historically speaking like afraid of angry men in the sky, or who live in a mountain, or who fly around and have wings on their feet, or whatever. And so we're like worried, like we're fighting against them, and we think they give a shit about us or whatever. And so we're constantly in battle with that too. Like, how do we, and that's the whole point of the story of Babel. Instead of just saying like, why do people speak different languages? Well, because they just do. They all made mouth sounds, and then it evolved, and it was actually this. No. It was God who made us all. Yeah. Well, then God's a huge dick.
Yes.
Like, that's such a dick move to be like, oh no, I don't want you guys to be able to communicate with each other. But like all of the things that we blame on God, like historically speaking, depending on what your religion is. And so, but then we're like, don't fight against God. Don't play God. You're like, well, God's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Like, did you read the story?
I love that. Yeah. I love that. There were conversations like, I should give them language. Oh, that's amazing. What? Yeah. They should all now communicate, and they can be one. Oh, no. They shall speak one language, and they shall speak another, and they shall speak another, and never shall they actually be able to speak to each other. Yeah,
we don't need that.
That's a really bad idea. Can we not?
That's a terrible. Right. Let's not do that. What if we all said the same thing and understood each other really clearly?
Yeah.
And then, no. So I do think you're right. I just think, and so we're always fighting with those things. So it is an interesting story. And again, I'm glad it exists, because here's the thing: here we get to have this conversation. You and I get to come together and just nerd out like we like to. And I hope that people, I always feel like as a younger person, to quote Fitzgerald, in my younger and more vulnerable years, I used to always get super pissy about adaptations. And I said, of course, there's no perfect adaptation. And I do think I set myself up. I needed this Frankenstein this was the Frankenstein I wanted. This was the one.
Mhm.
And it turns out it wasn't what I wanted it to be. That's
No.
on me. He's told the story he wanted to tell. It really, I was talking to Kyle the other day. He's like, it really should have been called Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Whereas like, Brana went out of his way to call it Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Like that was very important to him. And that makes perfect sense because he was trying to give her the credit where Del Toro's like, this movie's not going to pass the Bechdel test. Let's move along. Right.
Yeah.
We're just going to like, women are still going to be whatever. Yeah. Right. We're still going to make Elizabeth a scientist. It's cool. It's cool. Isn't that cool? And it is. And I appreciate it, but it's still, but that's the story he wants to tell. And I think then, Maggie Gyllenhaal gets to tell her story. And then in 2 years from now, somebody else is going to be like, I'm going to tell Frankenstein, and MGM Plus is going to make a Frankenstein TV series. And you've got the Creature Commandos, and so the story never ends. And I think that's great. And all of that is to say, anytime these things happen, if it makes people go back to the source material, that makes me happy. Like, because there are people who never read Frankenstein. When I taught it in class, actually, the last time I taught it in a liberal arts studies class, sort of a loose philosophy class, I actually made them read parts of Mary Wollstonecraft's Vindication of the Rights of Women early in the class. And then at the second half of the class, they read Frankenstein. Like we came back from half term, as you guys would say, from break, and be like midterms. And I was like, hey, now we're going to read Frankenstein. And then I made them like talk about it. And there's a couple of scholars who I found like do lectures on and have conversations about how they think they're influenced. And they had to like write about that and think about that and see this like literary lineage, but like the philosophy of Frankenstein instead of just like the creature of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So it was great fun for me. I'm glad I did it, but there were so many people who admitted, one of the questions is like, when did you first encounter Frankenstein? And this will be I know we're coming up to the end here. Scooby fucking Doo.
Yeah.
The majority of people who heard of Frankenstein for the first time from Scooby-Doo was boggling my mind. It didn't even occur to me. Of course, there was the Scooby-Doo and all the Universal monsters. That was whole thing. So it's like amazing. So that is where so many kids, when I say they're like people in their 20s now, so they're like Zoomers, they first experienced Frankenstein from Scooby-Doo, which of course Scooby-Doo is a Gen X thing. Like those Scooby-Doos were made for me, but they're still playing forever on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, and I probably have a similar story.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the first time I really came across the Universal monsters is 1987's Monster Squad.
Monster Squad. I love that movie. That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah, and the lesson I took from that is the Wolfman has nards. So it's an educational piece.
You learned a lot.
Yeah, and I think the thing about these monsters, just to wrap up, is this thing of like they can all be used, and I love the fact that they are used again. But the thing I often, this thing has highlighted Mary Shelley, all right, because like Del Toro has spoken about Shelley, and sort of like people are talking about her. We are now talking about the book, and I'm hoping more people are going back to the source material. I'm assuming like Bram Stoker's Dracula, sort of Copella's sort of idea probably took people back to the source novel, and I'm sure others have done since.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's interesting is when the others come up. So there was a new one of the Invisible Man, which had which A24 did. Elizabeth Moss.
I've not seen that yet. Is that? That's one of those ones I just missed for some reason. Yeah,
it's quite good. I recommend it. It's a modern take on it, but at no point do they go, this is a book,
right?
Do you want to go read H.G. Wells's The Invisible Man? You should do. It's very good, and if anything, like it's insane. Like he kills he derails a train because he's pissed. Like it's kind of like it's nuts.
Yeah.
Go read that, and you go like, oh, cool. And then you get like, Tom Cruise does War of the Worlds. And you go, that's brilliant. Here's the book.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everyone has to go read these things, but I do feel that with these adaptations, we talked about The Thing and,
that was
The Thing
such
from
a
Outer
great,
Space.
yeah.
And then we talked about, Who Goes There? And I was like, I did not know that was a short story.
Yeah. Well, that whole series that we did started because of that. Like I got that real cinema book, and there's like many, right? And that because even the greatest Roger Corman film of all time, Death Race 2000, was based on a short story called The Racer. Like we had no idea. It was like, what the hell? I've seen that movie a million times. It's just like watching it randomly, like what? I had no idea, so I went and found it. So it's like fantastic, right? Those source materials, and like there's sometimes like that it shouldn't be as good as it is. And we had a couple of those conversations where like this hacky movie really missed the point of this amazing story. But even this story, which is sort of like a cheeseball science fiction, like This Island Earth, that book was so good.
Yeah.
And that if we hadn't done that series, I would never have read the original source material because the book This Island or the movie This Island Earth is so dumb.
Yeah.
For all the reasons. But God, that book was so much better than it had any right to be.
And I think this is the thing I want to take from this is if people are listening, I'm not saying go out and read every book, but like film producers in Hollywood should make much more of the fact that there is a source material. Go check it out. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So, but instead of it just having a slot in there, often that goes like inspired by or based on, you go like no, it should be a part and parcel of it. But yeah, I think this is a good example of it started a conversation.
It was great. And I appreciate it. And I would just say, this has nothing to do with this, but I will say one time I almost caused a riot at a movie theater when I went and saw the Demi Moore and Gary Oldman version of The Scarlet Letter. I don't know if you saw that. I never got around to watch that. I love The Scarlet Letter. I love Hawthorne. I'm a big Hawthorne fan. Love all of his work. I think he's, again, talk about a guy who plods along and says more words than he needs to, but I'm here for all the fucking words that Hawthorne has to say. But that movie ends in such a way that was like so different, like not like you missed the point. And I like booed. I was mad. I've never been that angry at a theater before. But then I watched it again years later, just because I wanted, and I was like, how bad is it? It's so bad. But it says, it doesn't say, it says inspired by. That's what triggered it. Inspired by. Well, then don't call it The Scarlet Letter. Call it some other book that's inspired by this. Like, acknowledge that I'm taking the source material and I'm making a change. But like when you use the name, I think you do have some sort of obligation to, as you say. So it's like when we talk about weird science, it's clearly The Bride of Frankenstein or whatever. Don't call it The Scarlet Letter. Don't name her Haster Prynne. Don't make him Reverend Dimsdale and have that fucking ending. Riot at the movies. I was so mad. I was so excited for that. So I was like, oh man, Gary Oldman and Demi Moore and The Scarlet Letter, that's going to be amazing. It was not, let's say. But anyway, so you're inspired by is key, but I agree
inspired
with you.
by.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Inspired
and I think,
by.
just on that sort of thing, it helps if you are a living author. When your books are made into film, Stephen King just pops his head up every now and then. Made goes like, welcome to Derry. Don't forget to read it. The Running Man's come out. Don't forget to read The Running Man. And you go like, dude, at this point doesn't have to write anything. He could just turn up and be like, I've got these other books, and they'll just reprint them. And fair play to him. But
he can't help himself. Remember he said after the car accident when he got hit by the truck, he was going to quit writing and he couldn't stop.
Yeah,
like he can't stop writing. So that good for us, because the thing about Stephen King is not all his stuff is good, but a lot of it is. Enough of it is good. He's written so much that even if only half of it was good, he's got a library of amazing. I know. Yeah. And the stuff that he does with the kids is great too. Yeah. Right. The stuff he does with Joe and Owen is great too. So anyway, yes, I agree. Read books, people.
Yeah. Read stories. Go find those. Anyway, we shall wrap up there. And I'm sure, Tony, you will be back at some point. We will get you back on to talk about another, it's always with novels.
We love story time. Yeah.
Story time's always great. So we will do those comparisons. But what else are you doing? Where else can find you? And where people can find your books? Where can we find your books?
Yes, thank you. Also, adaptations, love letters to Jane Austen, are on, just go to my website, arfarina.com. You have links to everything there. You've got books, podcasts I've been on. I got to, back when you guys, I know you've been releasing them to the general public, but back when it was just a Patreon only, I was lucky enough to guest on your Walk Through the Twilight Zone so we could talk about Burgess Meredith and his glasses. And so that, so you could, there's links to all the different pods I've been on. Paul, Mike, and I are starting a book club that will meet 4 times a year. The first one is coming out. Paul was on 20th Century Geek. That's you. He was on Genuine Chit Chat talking about Hootie McGuigan, which is like a tall tale that is, because Paul's last name is McGuigan. And so we read this horrible folklore, Irish, insane book. And so we're going to actually do real book clubs every quarter. Every 3 months, we're going to try to roll up and do a book. So I'll be popping up here and there. But if you just go, there's a podcast link right on my website. You can hear me when I'm on your show or on a Spider Dan, or, occasionally I still pop up on Comics in Motion doing stuff. I just did something with Rhea. So I'm around, but that's the place to find me.
Fantastic. And there'll be links in the notes down below. So go check out and go buy the books because they are amazing. All the books you've done. Right away, Tony, thank you very much for jumping on. Greatly appreciate it. It's so always fun. And ladies and gentlemen, you can check us out. Go check our Patreon out. We've got all kinds of stuff on there. We're a little bit ahead, well, quite far ahead on Stories That Time of Space. We've got stuff on there. All these other things going on. Go check out, again, link to that down below. But for now, Tony, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you on the next episode.